Hey everyone, this is Faisal, certified high performance coach and a lifelong student of philosophy, spirituality, and sciences. So today is challenge day 11, and today's challenge topic is personal boundaries. Now, before I get into the challenge, or before I get into the topic and the questions, as always, I want to take the time to thank and honor all of those who have taken the time out of their busy lives to comment and post their answers, to share and like the videos, and all of those who have been encouraging others to join in with this discussion. One thing I've learned in my journey towards being a student, being a teacher, being a coach, that when we start to think about making our lives better, when we start to think about raising the quality of life for ourselves, what ends up happening is that it starts to automatically raise the quality of life for everybody around us. And a lot of times the influence and the inspiration that we create, the positive energy that we create when we change our lives for the better, it's so big that we can't really imagine how far the influence for it goes. And I've seen people getting affected by one person's transformation so much, people that might have been even indirectly connected to them, that when you start to observe these things, you realize how much of an effect we have on ourselves and on our environment. And in the same manner, when we don't take care of ourselves, when we don't focus on making our lives better, when we don't focus on mastering our mind, our body, and our emotions, we also affect our environment in a negative manner as well. So we need to be careful about that as well. But since you guys are all here, we're doing this together, and I'm in this journey with you guys, and I'm honored to be part of your journey. So thank you very much for all your likes, shares, and answers. I've learned a lot from them, and I'm sure whoever has gone through them, they have learned a lot as well. So today's challenge topic is personal boundaries. And I have 3 questions for you in relation to personal boundaries. What do personal boundaries mean to you? That's question number 1. Question number 2, have you defined your personal boundaries in relation to yourself and to your environment? And how have you done that? And question number 3, how do you help others define their boundaries? So go ahead and think about these questions, and I know for some they may be complicated, but if you haven't thought about this and you think that this might not make sense to you, or you haven't considered it before, go ahead and watch the video till the end so you get an idea of what I mean by personal boundaries, and you can go from there. And sometimes all we need is a little bit of a guidance to start thinking about how we want to look at our life. So go ahead and watch the video, and I'll give you my take on personal boundaries. So when we think of boundaries, we're thinking about a limit. Most people think of boundaries in terms of a bubble or limit that they've set around them. And that can be misleading in a lot of ways, because when we think of boundaries, as one author and spiritual teacher, Teal Swan, who's the writer of Shadows Before Dawn, put it, that we violate our own boundaries more than others violate our boundaries. And we really have to think about that, because most people think that other people violate their boundaries and they must protect themselves from other people's intrusion into their life, into their personal space. But a lot of times when we're not aware of ourselves, we violate our own boundaries. And let me give you an example of that. So let's say in terms of others violating our boundaries, that's pretty simple. Let's say somebody says something that that is hurtful to you, that would be a violation of your emotional boundary. Let's say somebody expects you to do something that you don't really feel right about, and they force you, they try to force you in different ways to do it. That would be a violation of your boundary. But then there's the other aspect of it, that we allow others to violate our boundaries. So if a person says something hurtful to us and we don't speak up, or we don't let them know how we feel, we're violating our own boundaries. If a person asks us to do something and we feel like we have so many things on our plate that we can't do it, and instead of letting them know, we keep it quiet and we end up doing it anyway by putting so much stress on ourselves, and that violates our own boundaries. And in the same manner, we violate not only our own boundary, and others violate our boundaries. What ends up happening is that when we become so stressed and busy with life, we become less thoughtful of other people as well. We start violating other people's boundaries, not because we intentionally want to a lot of times, but we become less thoughtful, less compassionate about their situation. So then, how do you define your boundary? And when I brought it up, I said that most people look at it in terms of a limit, but I don't really look at it in terms of that, because boundaries are much more complex than keeping people out. And as one of my mentors, Brendon Burchard, said, that when you keep people out that are negative, when you set a wall in front of you to keep negative things out, guess who you're keeping out as well? Positive people as well. So you have to be very careful about being defensive when it comes to your boundaries. But there is one concept that really helps in terms of boundary, and I've also done a video on that where I talked about clarity. But when we look at our lives, when we define who we are, when we become clear about who we are, when we become clear about our interactions with other people, our relationship, when we become clear about what we want in life, what we set our goals towards, what our dreams are, when we become clear about these things, it becomes the boundary situation becomes very simple, because we know how we want to be treated, because we've defined what we stand for, who we are. We know how we want to treat others, because we have defined that. And the third one is that we know what we're working towards, what our vision is. And when we become clear about our life, our boundaries are already defined in that sense. And another aspect of boundaries is being in touch with your emotional and physical side. And we talked about presence. And when you're present with yourself, you know how you feel. So if somebody says something hurtful to you, or somebody makes fun of you and you don't like it, but you have something within you where you consistently suppress that in terms of your emotions, then that's violating your boundaries. But when you're in touch with your body, when you're in touch with your emotions, you know when something is hurtful to you. And unless you resolve that or rectify that, unless you let other people know that that's not acceptable for you, not in a defensive way, but in a way that bothers you, that makes you sad, or that makes you hurt. And if you have people who don't understand that in your life, then you need to find a way to make them understand. And that's your job. And ultimately, you have to decide which relationships you want to be in. If they're toxic to the point where you can't deal with them, then you have to make decisions about that too. So when it comes to boundaries, once again, you have to define who you are. You have to define your relationships. And you have to define what you look forward to in life, what your vision and dream is for your life, what your goals are. And second thing is that be in touch with yourself, know how you feel, and always understand why you feel the way you feel. Have others violated your boundaries by being a certain way, and have you allowed them to be that way? Because when we start allowing people to treat us in careless ways, what happens is that we lose integrity. We lose respect for ourselves. And just as you respect others, in the same manner, you need to respect yourself as well. And when you have self-respect, you let people know how you feel about whatever, however you feel at that in that moment, whether that be anger or sadness or hurt feeling. So that's the second aspect of how you can define your emotional and physical boundaries. And the third one is more of a technique, more of a strategy, because most people, when it comes to communication, most people assume that others know exactly what you want, or they have an idea of what you want, or how you feel, or something along those lines. But when we assume that, we're assuming that they can read our mind, and that's not the reality. Our internal life is much too complicated for others to understand, even the closest people around us. If we're not explicit in our communication, if we don't let people know about our needs and wants, especially people that are our loved ones that are close to us, they need to know who we are. They need to know what we stand for. They need to know how we look at our relationships. They need to know how we feel about things. So the more clear we are in terms of our communication, the easier it is in terms of how we set our boundaries. And when we develop relationships based on honesty, when we develop relationships based on respect, when we develop relationships based on compassion, and when I say respect, that's mutual respect, so respect for them and the same reciprocity from that, and also respect for yourself as well. So when you think about these three things, this will help you define your boundary. So then the last question was, how can we help others define their boundary? Now, I think I mentioned that most people mean well when they are in your life. They want to help you out. They want to be there for you. But life sometimes gets so challenging, and most people get so busy and frustrated and distracted with life that sometimes they're either not thoughtful or they haven't really defined their own boundaries to even consider what your boundaries are. So when we set our boundaries, we're actually inspiring others to do the same thing for themselves, for them. And that's one aspect of it. But we can also help others set their boundaries by allowing them to be the way they want to be. So a lot of times when people have expectations of us that we must do this, we must do that, we must be there for them, and a lot of times expectations are fine, but there are expectations that do violate our boundary, and most people are not aware of it. But you can be the other side of that, where you allow people to have their boundaries by letting them know clearly that if they feel bad about something, they should let you know, by letting them know that you won't retaliate if they feel angry or they feel upset about something. Because most people don't like confronting people, because they don't like the conflict when they have to discuss or communicate something with others. So if you allow them to express themselves without any kind of retaliation from your part, if you let them know that if there is something that bothers you, they should let you know. If there is something that they want to do, they should let you know. It creates that trust between the two. You're allowing them to be themselves with you. And imagine a world where people can be themselves around you. And that's something that I believe we need to work towards as human beings. So now, hopefully I describe it's a very complicated subjects, and there have been books written over this, and I want you to think about the basics at least of boundary, because it's very important for you to be able to set goals. You need to set your boundaries as well. You need to set how you spend your time. You need to be able to say no to people. You need to be able to say yes to what you truly want in life. So you need to follow your joy. You need to be able to be explicit with people about what your needs are, what your wants are. So when you think about these things, it'll help you establish what you want out of life. It'll help you define your life, and that's to me is defining your personal boundaries. So now I want to hear from you. What do personal boundaries mean to you? Have you defined your personal boundaries in relation to yourself and to your environment? And the third one, how do you help others define their boundaries for them? Thank you very much. You guys have a great day. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 7 a.m. Thanks. Bye. If you loved or even liked the video or this episode, you can do two things right now. One, you can click on the subscribe tab right here on the screen or in the info area if you can't click on the screen. So you're up to date on all my free training, on all the free training that I send on my YouTube channel on a regular basis. And two, you can click on the success indicator tab on the screen or in the info section, so you can get the training, the thorough training that I created for you, that has 10 factors that will determine whether or not you will be successful at anything that you do or want to do. And it will also help you create more success at anything that you want to do in life. So, and this will also get you subscribed to my newsletter, so I can send you more of these free training on a regular basis that I don't post on my YouTube channel. So make sure you click on those two buttons or tabs, and make sure you like and share this video. Make sure you post your comments in the comment section below so we can get more people involved in our community right here. Thank you very much. Have a great day.